Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here. In today's video, we have some very exciting news from Analogue. You can see it right here. Meet the Analogue Pocket. So let's get started. If you're not familiar with Analogue, they are widely known for making extremely high quality retro consoles. For example, this is the Sega Genesis retro console, the Mega SG. They also have a Super Nintendo retro console, the Super NT, and it all started with the regular NT for the NES. Now, what makes these special is they aren't standard emulation consoles. They don't take the ROM off the game and play it that way via emulator. What they do is they actually play the old games using an FPGA chip. So when you're playing a game, it is almost one-to-one with the original console. The added benefit of this is that it works on high-definition TVs via HDMI. And just today, they announced the Analogue Pocket, a Game Boy and Game Boy Advance handheld device that plays via FPGA. So this is a brand new device that will play your retro games. And I'm extremely excited about this. Now, you think, well, this is just a retro console, not a big deal. I can just boot up my regular Game Boy. No, this is considerably different. So let's take a look here. It says here a multi-video game system portable handheld, a digital audio workstation with a built-in synthesizer and sequencer, a tribute to portable gaming. Out of the box, Pocket is compatible with the 2780, so 2780 plus Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance cartridge library. Pocket works with cartridge adapters for other handheld systems too, like Game Gear, Geo Pocket Color, Atari Lynx, and more. Completely engineered in 2 FPGAs, no emulation. And it doesn't stop there. We'll scroll down just a little bit here. Your Pocket just got bigger. Pocket is designed around a first-in-class 3.5-inch 615 ppi LCD with a 1600 by 1440 resolution. Pocket has 10 times the resolution of an original Game Boy. So to take a moment to start taking everything in, the amount of systems this thing does: Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, with cartridge adapters. Here we have Game Gear, Geo Pocket Color, Atari Lynx, and apparently more. So right off the bat, we have 6 consoles this thing will play, not emulate, will actually fully play the games right off the cartridge. On top of that, it will probably look way better than the original Game Boy, considering the screen here, the amount of resolution that's on the screen. So that's pretty awesome. And if we look down even further, it shows the digital audio workstation that does the synthesizer and sequencer stuff. So not stuff that I'm really into or really excited about for that matter, but for those people I would say this is a pretty big deal. And now let's talk about the 2 FPGAs. So up the page here, they did mention it. It does have 2 FPGAs. So what that means, if we take a look down at the bottom here, Pocket is designed for FPGA development. We added a second dedicated FPGA just for developers to develop and port their own cores. With access to Analogue's proprietary hardware and scalers, we think developers are going to do some amazing things. So this means further development is possible with this. They're obviously going to be open and probably willing to work with developers on this to port even more cores over to emulate even more systems. Actually, not emulate, that's a wrong term. To play even more games from other systems. So I don't know if you can tell, I'm already really excited for this thing, but I'm going to scroll down because there's even more information. So just above me here, you can see the Analogue Dock. Play your Pocket on the big screen, put your Pocket into the dock, and it outputs directly to your HD TV. Sync up any wireless 8-bit DO Bluetooth controller directly to the dock for wireless play. You can also connect controllers directly via wired USB as well. Now at this point, I'm sure some of you are thinking, well, what's the big deal? You can play Game Boy games on a Game Boy. You can play Game Boy Advance games on a Game Boy Advance. Heck, you can play Game Boy games on a Game Boy Advance. And who would want to dock a portable system? What's the point of that? And I would say I don't know the point of docking a portable system. It doesn't make any sense. It's probably not going to be a big seller. But in all seriousness, I can see that some people would say, Well, you can just emulate games no problem, especially Game Boy games, on your phone. I actually do it. I play Game Boy games quite regularly just using my phone and a paired Bluetooth controller, which I find is probably the best way to emulate games. This is not emulation. This is actually a full-blown console that does play games. And if you're thinking, well, it's going to be a pain in the butt to bring all of these games along with me, I would agree. Carrying dozens of cartridges is a bit of a pain, especially considering the Game Boy didn't really have a digital library. You could always go the Mega EverDrive route, but if you scroll down just a little bit more on this page, there is something very important here, and that is micro SD. So this supports micro SD cards. Now, I'm not sure if you are familiar, maybe you are, maybe you are not, but the Analogue ST, the Mega SG, all of the analog consoles have been, unquote, hacked, where they can play ROMs. And playing ROMs through an FPGA is no different than if you are playing them, for example, through a Mega EverDrive on an SD card, which is technically playing it on the hardware. It's not true emulation by any stretch of the imagination. It's more actually closer to playing the real cartridge on the console. So you could essentially load up a micro SD card whenever this thing is hacked, which will be pretty quick based on previous systems of theirs. You could load up all the ROMs on a micro SD card and you're off to the races. I can see right here too, it also is USB-C, which is amazing. Phones and most devices nowadays are USB-C, so it's nice just to have one cable to kind of handle everything. There is also a headphone jack on this. All buttons are mappable, so if you do want to change your button configurations around, you can. It's also DAC compatible for you audio people. Now, I've gone over the specs and pretty much everything that I'm excited about with this because I am very excited. I don't normally get this excited for a console that's coming out or for a handheld, but this has really piqued my interest. However, there are some things to consider. Firstly, we don't know the battery life on this. If it's a 2-hour battery life or 3-hour battery life, that would be extremely frustrating. It does have a very nice screen. I'm not certain on the overall battery life of this, but if it's a good battery life, maybe 5, 6, 7 hours, maybe up to 12 hours, that would be very nice. If this is just like a 3-hour thing, I would be a little let down. Something else about this is that it is $199. So it's shipping in 2020, so next year, for $199, and that's 199 American dollars. Now I'm in Canada, which would make this even more expensive for me. So this is definitely more of an investment than anything. And on top of that, if you do want to play the other games via cartridge, so this will do Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance, but if you want to play the other games via cartridge, you will have to buy an adapter. So you will have to buy an adapter, actually probably for each game. So Game Gear games, Geo Pocket Color, Atari Lynx, all those cartridges are different sizes, so you probably will also have to buy adapters for those games. And on top of all of that, the Analogue Dock does not have a price. It says to be announced. So you're probably going to be paying considerably more than the $200 base price for this if you want to buy adapters and the dock and all of that. It's probably going to be closer. I actually don't even want to speculate at this point. And lastly, one potential design flaw that I see are those 3 buttons. So if you see where these buttons are, they're right where your palm is going to be gripping the Game Boy or the Analogue Pocket here, which may lead to some accidental presses. Now, I don't want to say this is for certain. Maybe they require a little bit of extra force to use, but I can see the start and select and the analog button here, which might have a drawback to the overall design. So if we look at the overall design of this, so I'll scroll up here to the top of the page so we can see all of the buttons and how everything works. So there is a D-pad, there are 4 buttons, and there are those 3 buttons there. So if you don't believe me that this might cause an issue, pick up your phone even and hold it like you would a Game Boy. And if you see, my hand is going to be covering those buttons. Now, more than likely that will cause an issue, which is what I'm really worried about. Maybe it won't. I would love to test it out to be able to tell you whether or not it will. On the back of this, there's also an L and R button. So on either side of the Game Boy Pocket, or the Game Boy Pocket, the Analogue Pocket there is an L and R button just below the game cartridge slot. Now, ideally, I would have liked to see the L and the R buttons on the face of this controller, similar to the 8-bit Do controller right here, where I use these buttons as L and R buttons when I'm using emulation. Now, I would have probably liked to have seen those buttons on the face, although I don't know how that would have looked. Maybe it would have looked weird. Maybe there was some chip logistics that they couldn't do it. And lastly, the D-pad, I hope it's really good. So one of the things when I look at portable systems is the D-pad. Nintendo Switch completely taken out of this one. Maybe the Switch Lite. Actually, maybe the Switch Lite. So we'll throw the Switch Lite into this group, take the regular Nintendo Switch out because you can just swap out the Joy-Cons. But the D-pad and button, actually the whole thing, the button feel really matters because you can't really swap them out that easily. They're kind of just built in. So if the D-pad is not great, the whole system experience probably won't be that great. It really depends. You really will need a solid D-pad and solid buttons, but I'm not sure. So I don't know at this point. I'm dying to review one of these things, really to check it out. But I'm really looking forward to this. I think this has amazing potential. The development core that they've included with this is huge for expanding this. If you think about it, maybe we'll get SNES emulation on here, Sega Genesis, all from a one device handheld, which is incredible. I'm really looking forward to this. Let me know in the comments below what you think about this. This is, in my opinion, huge news for the retro gaming community, for the gaming community who want to experience good games. I just think this is really awesome and something that is definitely on my radar. Anyways, that's all I've got for today. If you liked the video, leave a like. If you didn't like the video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button. Check out my other videos. Thank you, everyone. Take care.